Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. My name is Angela, and I'd like to welcome you to today's session, Conversational Knowledge, the Next Frontier, with Scott Litman, co-founder of Lucy, Mark Vontabel, co-founder and CEO at Starmind, and Hajo Conrad, CEO and co-founder of Wyze Work. Couple of points before we begin. The webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be made available to you after the webinar. You can ask questions during and also at the end of the session by using the questions widget. So our platform has a few functions which I'm just quickly going to walk you through. Number one shows where you can send your questions, so the questions widget. Number two is, of course, where you can see the slides. And number three are a group of widgets. Now, these widgets offer you the chance to interact with your fellow webinar attendees through the group chat or to interact with the platform and the content. Just click on the icon and see what happens. The platform is designed for you to get everything out of our time together, so just experiment and have a little bit of fun. Right, let me start by introducing you to our speakers. Scott is an entrepreneur in search of new ways technology can advance the mission of knowledge workers from sales, marketing, research, and insights. From the early days of the internet and the first websites to business portals of the dot-com era to the latest generation of artificial intelligence, Scott has a long history of building businesses that help Fortune 1000 marketers and agencies that serve them take advantage of cutting-edge digital transformation. Mark is the co-founder and CEO at Starmind. He's dedicated to driving forward Starmind's vision of connecting employees to colleagues with answers through self-learning networks with the power of AI. Continually fascinated by how technology can bring people together, Mark truly believes that the scale and power of human intelligence is something that's vastly underestimated within organizations today. Hajo has more than 20 years of experience in the marketing and research and insights industry. In August 2020, he founded Wyze Work to make research and insights professionals more productive without the need to change their way of working while unleashing the knowledge that is buried in conversations. So we have an amazing array of speakers. Scott, let me hand over to you to get us started.
Angela, thank you. And I think this is our 5th event together, so really appreciate ESOMAR and these events. And excited to talk today about what we think of as the next frontier in knowledge management, which is conversational knowledge. As a way to get started, though, I want to talk about our journey, the journey we've made with Lucy. And as the founder of Lucy, we make a leading knowledge management tool that's deployed at a great many Fortune 500s, as well as some large agencies that service them. And we've been working at this for 5 years. And when we first got started, when we thought about the concept of knowledge in the enterprise, we started with the challenge that all businesses have, which is I have more data, and particularly data in files. You know, if you think about all the stuff that populates SharePoint and OneDrive for Business and Office 365 or Box, Dropbox, Google Drive, whatever you have, all those PowerPoints, PDF, Word documents, we thought that's knowledge. Companies have loads of it. Every research report, every plan, every study, every proposal, every deck that is put together, whether it is forward-looking strategy or recap reports. And the thing is, it's hard enough to remember where your own stuff is, much less if I'm on a team of 3 or 5 or 10 people, what they've done, or a department with 100 people, or a company with thousands, what have they all been working on? And so when we first started thinking about knowledge management and the solutions we would build for insights professionals, we looked at it and said, well, we need to be able to have a solution that can effectively answer questions against the data that people own. But very quickly, we started to realize, well, it's not just the data that people own, because so many companies have these excellent vendors they work with that are providing them with syndicated market research data. The eMarketers and Mintels and Euromonitors, Global Web Index, Kantar, Hartman Group, and a host of others are providing rich data. And so it's not just a matter of, can I find that PowerPoint, but it's, what does my vendor at Mintel have? And so we started to think, okay, data and knowledge is unstructured. And so that's what we built our earliest solutions around, bringing those together. But as we started to deploy solutions to customers, we started to get other demands. We would hear that customers would have surveys and studies in Knowledge Hound. They would have dashboards in Power BI and Tableau. They would have video in Vox Pop Me and Big Sofa. They'd be working with excellent vendors like Zapier, Black Swan, that have just a slew of amazing audience analysis trend data available. And so we started to recognize knowledge needs to be inclusive of that. And so our picture of the world has been that data it starts with unstructured. All the PowerPoints, PDF, Word documents, OneNote, Visio, Pages and Keynote for Mac users, all the text formats like RTF and text. Our Lucy will listen and watch a couple dozen formats of audio and video. Then we throw in the layer of the syndicated data from the Kantars and Mintels and eMarketers, GWI and others, and then also start incorporating some of that structured data from dashboards like Power BI and Tableau, and surveys from Knowledge Hound and excellent vendors like Zapier and Black Swan. And so that's that has been our take on what constitutes knowledge, and our journey today brings us there. And just to give a quick show of what does that even look like, I'm going to share my screen briefly just to show one or two examples. And so right now what we should see is my web browser. I've brought up Lucy. I'd love to show all kinds of stuff, but we're going to keep it simple and just go to a couple of examples. Imagine the demand comes to the insights department that we're doing a study on corporate sustainability programs. What do we know? What do we know about corporate sustainability? So I'm going to ask Lucy, how are companies developing their sustainability programs? I asked this to her last night in advance just to see what we had. She remembers that and can autofill that in. So a couple of things to note. Lucy operates with natural language. She's actually a system of NLP and NLU, natural language processing and understanding. So how are companies developing their sustainability programs? You just talk to her. If the question would make sense to a colleague, it'll make sense to Lucy. Well, you certainly can use keywords. Keywords are super broad and not very specific. And so I look on the right and I can see the answer units coming out of My Lucy. My Lucy is connected to my company SharePoint, as well as a bunch of subscriptions like Global Web Index and eMarketer. There's about 1 million pages of content in this Lucy. And from the data we own and the data we license, we see interesting results. Our partnership with Greenbook, they've got some interesting content here. I see a summary from different articles, mostly in SharePoint. If I click in on any one of these, I see an answer on page 158 of a 225-page document. It looks like an annual report or corporate responsibility report we must have picked up from Ferrero at some point. And I should mention these are public documents. There's nothing confidential here. But Lucy's done a good job of giving me specific answers from a wide number of results. She even goes in and tags everything in detail, taxonomies, concepts, keywords. And so I might think, well, I need to be more specific. I don't just want to know about corporate sustainability. I want to know about corporate governance. And so we have filters where I can filter on that metadata. So if I put in corporate governance as a filter, I'm going to go down and get just from broad sustainability right down into the governance side of this and see very specific results from different reports. And so I can really dive in and take a massive amount of data. And so when we think about knowledge management, we think about, well, there's all this stored knowledge in the organization. How do I unlock that? Another quick example would be, I'm going to ask in the entertainment industry, what are the most popular genres of movies? And Lucy is working in CPG and retail and entertainment, financial services, healthcare, auto, a variety of industries. And here I'm seeing answers from a number of sources. I'm seeing from a vendor like Global Web Index on page 14 to 37, a really interesting response in one of their pieces of published research. But I'm also seeing I can connect to tools because we brought in that layer of like the Tableaus and Power BIs. In this case, it's Knowledge Hound. And there's a survey. And what we've done is Lucy doesn't really get numbers, but she gets how to know that Knowledge Hound does or how Tableau or Power BI does. And so what we've done is we've actually embedded a full capability like Knowledge Hound into the answer unit so that we can manipulate the data, we can filter and filter the data, and work directly with Knowledge Hound right through Lucy for our customers that have Knowledge Hound. And so I just wanted to give you a very brief look of what is this all, what do we see? What do we do? Where is our journey of knowledge management taking us when we can connect to all the stuff on an internal SharePoint or internal Drive services. We can connect to the syndicated data. We can connect to the tools. And we thought that's a pretty complete picture of the universe of knowledge that's for customers. But then customers keep asking us and saying, but what's next? Or we want to do this too. And some of our customers have said it's really great that knowledge management can now include all of these things. But we also want to find the knowledge that's in the experts inside of the company. And so then we looked and started partnering with Starmind and looking at how can we have, just like we integrate with all this other stuff, how do we integrate with an amazing system like Starmind that knows what's really between the ears of people instead of what's in the documents. And so with that, I'm going to pass this over to Starmind's CEO, Mark, if you can take us in.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Scott. Thanks for having me here. It's very interesting also to see the latest demo of Lucy, an amazing tool and a great partner for us. I want to quickly take you back a few years when we actually started with Starmind, because our story wasn't that straightforward where we tried to solve a knowledge management problem. We actually tried solving our very own problem. My co-founder and I, we met at the Artificial Intelligence Laboratory in Zurich, where we were working on humanoid robots, like the one you see here on the picture. And back in the days, we believed we know everything about the world we need to know to build such a system. But it turned out after a few hours that we don't know anything about the world. We should have learned from material science to chemistry to physics, from computer linguistics to you name it. Any topic is relevant if you want to build a robot that is at least seemingly intelligent. So we started thinking about how can we be faster? How can we access the knowledge that is already out there? And started with the vision of creating like an eBay for knowledge. We said it would be so great to be able to just ask any question and have an algorithm that finds the right scientists anywhere in the world that is actually willing and able to answer that question. That's how we started. And 3 years into that science platform, we were approached by a large Swiss bank. And the guy told us, the CIO, Pascal, Mark, very nice idea. I have thousands of questions, but for me, it's not really possible to ask them on your platform in the internet. Wouldn't it be possible to use your technology to actually understand who knows what within our organization? Because I know for every problem I have, there would be someone within the company that could actually solve the problem or potentially has already solved it, but I have no chance to find that person without involving lots of other people and calling all of my network to figure out who that is. That was the first time when we, the science guys, actually were confronted with how organizations manage their knowledge within organizations. And for us, it was quite amazing to see that even though 80% of the knowledge is actually not really documented, not really somewhere in a system, in a generalized way where people can access it, but it's really in here, it's in the brains of the employees, but there is nothing to actually find that knowledge. A lot of companies in the early 2000 years tried to actually make people somehow curate the profile, define what their skills are, what their knowledge is. But we all know you do that maybe on the first day of your job, and then you never do it again. And those that really have a lot of knowledge and relevant real-time knowledge, they definitely don't spend too much time putting it into a system. And the problem of finding relevant information gets harder or bigger on a daily basis as we speak. I believe most of you know most of these logos here on that platform. And in every single tool that you use, you have so much knowledge, you have so much information, potentially also relevant information, but also combined with a lot of redundant information, a lot of outdated information, and so on. And it's getting harder and harder for an employee to actually find what they need. And if they find what they need, to put it into their current context, to see whether they can apply it to their current problem. And it was amazing for us to see that if you look at the larger landscape of an enterprise, where the CIOs actually invest. And if you look on this small chart, there are two purple boxes. One is in social collaboration. We see every single organization spending a lot of money in social collaboration to actually bring people together to collaborate on certain topics and so on. But all of that always happens within the immediate team, within the network you already have, and not really outside of your current network. And then on the other hand, the generalized knowledge, we have seen over the last years a lot of things happening to combine the different data silos, to even go, like Lucy, into knowledge that is on the outside of the company. But there is no real way to actually get individual situation-specific expert knowledge from someone you don't know. No Teams actually introduces you to someone you don't know just because you have a question. And that blind spot, that's where Starmind comes in. So we really go after the 80%, the knowledge that is inside the brains of the employees. And how we do that, we actually really go into all the simple little data chunks that are out there in all the different tools. So we have connectors to a lot of different enterprise collaboration tools, conversation tools, also to calendar system and so on. And all of these little information chunks, we take them to draw a conclusion about who deals with what kind of topic at the very moment in time. So instead of having people to actually write down and curate the profile, we actually try to really look into the context, a little bit like PageRank did that in the internet, the success factor of Google, not really looking just purely at the content of a document, but how everything is interlinked. These links are now created by our AI. These links are not created to point towards a document, to point towards a website, but they always point towards the person that at the moment in time deals with that topics more than anyone else within the organization. And we use that to, in the end, connect people who would have otherwise never met. People that seek knowledge to people who have the knowledge, who have the knowledge top of mind, to, in the end, solve every problem that you cannot solve by the information you find directly with a peer who actually knows. And to give you an insight into how that looks like, I just quickly open up my screen and give you a little demo. This is our internal Starmind network, so it's live data, but not of a customer, so it's not that confidential. But if you, for example, type in here, I want to understand who the right person within Starmind is to talk about our algorithm, then you see on the right-hand side the topics that often occur together with algorithm within our company. That is highly individual, so this is not something that you can just copy-paste into the next organization. Our AI learns that on a daily basis. And on the left side, you see the people that are most relevant at the moment in time when it comes to questions about algorithm. So it's Stijn Vermeeren who is on top, who is actually our head of AI, but the system doesn't know that. It just captures all the interactions that Stijn had with this term or the terms that are related to it. If you now go a little bit deeper and say, we want to understand more about the patterns that we have on our algorithm, the list on the left side changes. So you are now way more specific. You see that Joachim is on top. He's actually managing everything around our patterns. You see the overlaps on the right side when it comes to the topics. And that's what's happening behind the scenes at Starmind. For the user, it's very simple. You just ask a question. So what is our latest patent? And then what happens in the background is the very same thing. We analyze what the question is all about, figure out who the experts are, and all you have to do is pose the question and get an answer from the person that knows the answer. That's what Starmind does, and that's fully integrated into Lucy AI at several customers. And we see that if you combine these two words, the documented knowledge and the undocumented knowledge, you can create a solution that actually unblocks every employee when it comes to the daily problems they have to solve within the organization. With that, back to you, Scott.
Excellent. Thanks, Mark. I think it's so cool. The user is just looking for an answer. And when we integrate Starmind and Lucy, if the answer comes from page 62 of a PowerPoint, if it comes from a great report at GWI or Euromonitor, or if they're looking for the expert, it's not for the user to worry about what do I log into. They go to Lucy, they ask, and there's the interface that gets them to any of it through these connectors. And then the collaboration ends up being really powerful. And while we can't show what it looks like in an end customer deployment, we put a couple of screens here just to show the example of how that embed looks inside of Lucy as well. Now, the next frontier of this is I started talking to my friend Hayo, and he has been in the knowledge management space since the beginning, building these tools out. And we've been talking about just how much knowledge lives in conversations, and whether those conversations are in Teams or Slack and other internal chat tools or in Outlook. And that's a problem that his company Wyze Work has been out to solve. And so I'm going to pass it over to Hayo and let him give his perspective on that. And then we'll bring it in for a Q&A with everybody. So Hayo, take it away.
Thank you, Scott. It was really amazing what you showed me there on Starmind. I was really blown away. My take on this conversational knowledge is a bit different because my history is really in knowledge management. So when I started my career in 2011 at MarketLogic, during my career, I see exactly two things that change the industry, and that's what's really important to me to point out today, because it's the entry point why I founded last year Wyze Work. The first thing is 2017 when DIY and agile research emerged, and we saw that there's a lot of things going on, and until today we see more and more emerging suppliers, research methodologies, technologies coming up, increasing amount of data that is coming with all this information. But we also see that there's very great and super new ways to do research and to find things and to do better business decisions. The other thing I think that's already nobody can hear it anymore is like the COVID. I'm not looking at what COVID does for the research industry, but I think what we should look at what COVID does, how we work today. And when I take a look at this and I see that everyone is moving from more or less preferred face-to-face to 100% online, and all the different new tools coming up to enable the people to collaborate, to communicate, to align, to speak on the day-to-day business, then it's really something that is challenging today. So if I talk now to old friends in the research industry, and I was like, oh, how are you feeling today? And they're like, guys, dude, this is really, really hard to keep up and stay on top of things. And I have to deal with internal, external stakeholders, new suppliers across different applications. And my feeling is that my work is all over the place. And it's not just the work is all over the place, it also is like, it's super hard to find my own stuff, as you pointed out already, Scott. But the other thing is, and I think that is more important for knowledge management system or knowledge management industry, also the knowledge is all over the place. And that brings me to the underlying problem, because when I talk to insights leaders, they say, like, my impression is that if knowledge is not in a ready-to-consume format, it will never make it in the knowledge management system. So you saw before the 20% in Mark's presentation, I think I have the same number here, but for me, it's more like 20% is the one we can capture today because it's a structured document, it's a ready-to-consume document. But we also know that 80% is now going more and more into this level of conversations. It's maybe in a communication channel. It's maybe just a file that would be ready to use, but it's only shared in a communication channel, never goes to a knowledge management system. And people say, like, or insights leaders say that it's up to 80% of knowledge we lose every year because it's inaccessible for the broad community or from a broad organization. And that is exactly where we come into the game, where we founded Wyze Work, because we said it cannot be that people are lost with all the work and tools and so on, and on the other hand, we even have a double negative impact because also the knowledge is gone. So we said our challenge is we need to support the people the way they work. So we do not want them to give another tool or another tool which makes them more productive. We let them work the way they want to work and they're most productive. That's one thing. And need to ensure that the knowledge is not they're creating, they are sharing, they are writing in emails and so on is not lost. And we follow, when we build our product, we follow always three rules. The first thing is, and we have to keep that in mind, I think that's super important, is the knowledge creation and the reuse and the sharing usually happens outside any knowledge management system. That is a fact. It's somewhere in mails, messages, PowerPoint, and so on. The second thing is preparing and capturing knowledge for reuse. That's not a part of, it's not a routine of an insights or an insights professional. Usually they are done with the job, they answer the question, they send out the report or whatsoever via email, and then they go to the next job. To really take then the information and think about, like, this is important, I need to store it somewhere, is usually not happening. And the third one is we need to increase the engagement with existing knowledge. Today, I think we are still too much have the position that the user needs to go to the knowledge. We need them to go somewhere, dig for something, check out for something. And I believe, and we at Wyze Work believe, the knowledge and everything is there, and we have the technology. We need to bring that back into the process of the users automatically. We need to anticipate when they need information and need to provide them exactly where they are and where they work and the tools they work. So, and if we follow that, we need, from our point of view, I think if we want to be future-proof in knowledge management, I think we are in a very good way, we need to really rethink the current concept of knowledge management systems. And that's what we do at Wyze Work. Our working hypothesis is that 100% of the relevant knowledge a company has is shared in conversations or via communication channels. That means every time somebody writes a mail and shares something because it's important and this gets reshared and so on, we believe that is exactly where we can see that's relevant knowledge. If there's a data sheet, nobody touches, but it's in a database, it's maybe not relevant. But we focus on the relevant knowledge here. We said, okay, if everything is shared via communication channel, why can't we simply collect everything that is going through those communication channels, is shared communication channel, and make a kind of what we call context collection out of it. Context collection is simply nothing else than we structure and organize everything that happens within a context, it might be a project, a topic, or initiative, and make it accessible in one view. So it means you do not have to deal with tons of different applications anymore. You go to our service, and within our service, you see everything that is related to a topic, a project, and so on a timeline, so that you can immediately see what happens on that project, ABC, or in this communication, and so on. Let me go to the next level, because that is only for what the teams does. It's only for their own work, to structure their own work. That's the first part of our solution, that they have access to what they do, and they can focus on their jobs instead of following through different applications and keeping on top of things. But the second thing is, how can we ensure that the knowledge they're creating there is not lost? And what we have in mind and what we're working on right now is we're building an automated knowledge and insights flow. Means we have on the left-hand side the communication collaboration where the knowledge has created, and we organized it already. So we have the information and knowledge in emails and so on already here. And now the second step is, which is already, today is still a barrier, we automatically capture that knowledge into a knowledge management platform like a Lucy or so. So we can connect with them and hand over the information. Of course, Lucy has even more, like a Starmind and so on. And at a certain point of time, when people work in their context, we believe that there is, and this is what we call this engagement piece, they need information. And then we could all anticipate that and automatically inject from Lucy or whatever information directly back into the context, and that people work with that and give them maybe some information they never thought they have already, and so that we can reduce duplicate research or ask other people, so because we have all the information at hand. Let me give you a little demo on that, how that looks like. I think that already. You can see my screen. Coming? That's super slow.
We got it now.
You got it now. Okay. So we said conversational knowledge used to happen in conversations. It's either an Outlook or a Teams, and it's just an example. You also can have that on a Google platform and so on. But when we say we do not want people to change the way people work, and we are on communication channels, we said, why can't we give you simply access to what they work on in the tools they are in anyways? So I work a lot in Outlook. I manage the people, asking suppliers, talk to customers, and so on. So I would have all my work at hand in Outlook, or if I want later on also in Teams and so on. So here you can see everything I work on. It's maybe a project, it's an initiative, it's here desk research. And we can simply go in, and when I'm in, I can go down to the bottom and really see what happened at the beginning. And from the beginning, we see there was a briefing, came via email. I had then a discussion with my teams over Teams Messenger. I uploaded some PDFs and links in my tool. So you see, from the briefing till the very end, I collect everything across the different communication channels, in this sense, like Outlook, Teams, what has been shared on OneDrive, and Slack and Zoom in one go. And I know that people will say, yeah, but what's the benefit of it? I'm not in Outlook and in Teams. No problem. We have the same panel in Teams. So no matter where you work, we are there, and you always have access to your job. And having said that, I mean, what we talked about, like conversational knowledge, we also want you, of course, to give you access point that you can dig into whatever has been said. And we have a search in here integrated where you can go in and say, okay, I want to search for mails and chats or by docs and links. And we will give you only the latest version of a doc and link that has been shared. So not version X, Y, that, just the latest that has been shared. You even can go deeper into that, search by search term, and see exactly what is in. Or, and that I think this is an important piece, that's the connection to knowledge management system then, is search the insights memory. We call it insights memory because we believe that's predominantly for insights managers. So if I would click here, I would now get all the information that's maybe stored in a Lucy or so. We connect to them, and they give us information back. It could be something from Starmind on top, who's my expert entry point. It could be even something like knowledge we have there, which is not mine. I'm not aware of that. And I can go deep or can go into the details from here without even leaving my application, you see? And this is exactly the point we want to make. We do not see a need to switch apps or introduce a new app. We want the people to work exactly as they work and want them still to give all the knowledge, all the information, everything they have, everything they work on at hand in a convenient way and without dealing with administrative tasks that eats up only time instead of helping them being the partner to the business. All right. I have only one last slide and then I'm done, Scott. Because everyone is asking me like, okay, what does it mean you read my emails and so on? No, we don't do this. We don't read emails. We don't read private conversations. We do not change permissions of documents and so on. That is unchanged. So all your data is safe, all your data is secure, and we are completely GDPR compliant. And that's from my side, and back to you, Scott.
Excellent. Thank you, Hayo. Really appreciate that. And for me, the thought that I think tries to bind all of this together is I wanted to share our journey as we've gone through this, because I think in many ways this matches the journey that customers go on. You know, they start with an RFP or RFI in a process to bring together, you know, a search solution for their internal data. But as they start to think more and more about knowledge, just like we've been thinking about knowledge, we realize it comes from many sources. It also comes from many vendors. You know, at one point when we first started, we thought we'll go conquer the world on our own. But we very quickly realized that the world is too big and there's too many problems and too many different technologies. And the world is full of best of breed solutions that can be woven together to create comprehensive solutions for customers. And, you know, when I think about for any one customer that has, you know, 10 syndicated sources, 5 tools, and, you know, a couple million pages of content in SharePoint, there's different technologies that need to be brought together to make it all work. And so we love to partner with companies like Starmind and Wyze Work, as well as many others in the industry, so that the best of breed solutions are brought together in a cohesive ecosystem to harness all knowledge for customers. And that's where we think it all really works best together. And so with that, we'll move to Q&A, and I think Angela will come back in to help facilitate that.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much to all of you for sharing such a fascinating group of technologies all at once. It's really great. Just to remind our audience, if you'd like to send a question, please do so through the Q&A widget. We have some questions coming in. Let's start with one from Joan, who's got sort of a 3-point question, which perhaps, Scott, you can jump in on. Joan is asking, what do you think are the best practices in the industry to tag raw data, insights, or conclusions? What things do we need to keep in mind? And what would you say are the best formats to serve information or knowledge?
Excellent. Yeah, I'd love to jump on that. I'll start with what would you say are the best formats to share information or knowledge? The best formats are the formats you already have. I mean, one of the things that we've looked at here is the format can be a PowerPoint. It can be a PDF. It can be a Word document. In some case, the format is a conversation that exists in you know, Teams or Slack, or it's who do I talk to? And so we don't want people to try converting data or trying to synthesize everything down to a common format, because the format is that knowledge is all over the place. And the other theme then becomes we want to avoid overhead to managing these systems. If you have to go through a huge undertaking to manage knowledge, you're not going to end up managing the knowledge. Like, it's just too much work, which gets to what do we think are the best practices for the tagging of data? The best practice for tagging data is to pick technology that tags the data effectively for you and does that heavy lifting. If I look at the average Lucy customer that has millions of pages of content, who would ever have time to tag every page of content? But Lucy does it, you know, in a matter of days. And for every new PowerPoint and 100 pages of content, or every new Word document or new video or audio she gets, she's constantly reading, listening, watching, learning, and tagging. And so automated tagging becomes very powerful because, again, who's got time to do all that work? So for us, the big themes are how do we work most natively with the knowledge you have? How do we work with the vendors that most natively work with the knowledge you have? How do we use automation to ingest everything, tag everything, and bring it all together so that you become a benefactor of a knowledge system that works well without an immense overhead of micromanagement of data, tuning of data, tagging of data, collating of data, or modification of data? Because the reality is there's too much data for that exercise to really ever work.
Thank you. That's a very comprehensive answer. Hi, Joe or Mark. I'm not sure if you want to jump in.
Sorry, I didn't get that one.
Oh, I think Angela's just saying for Mark or Hayo, if either of you have a perspective to add, or we can move on to the next question.
I'm absolutely with you, Scott. So everything that you, where you have to force people to use a different format, where you have to force people to adhere to a certain standard, will not be used or just by a few people, so it's not going to be useful. So I'm 100% agree with what you said.
And it's getting even worse if you work on a global company. Every market, every different region, they work differently. They have preferred tools they work with, templates they work with. They have processes set up. So they always find a way how they are most productive with the tools they have. And I never noticed or saw somebody like adapting to something new, like without any training and barriers and problems with that. So I would say leave them as they work and support them the way they work best.
Makes sense. Let's hop to the next question. And I think we touched on it a little bit earlier on. Who can access my emails and conversations I share with my colleagues or stakeholders? What if they're private?
I think that's for me, right? So
it sure is.
Nobody can access that. So our assumption is if you work in a team and you really if you set up a context, it's only for a team, and we collect then only the information that's shared between these team members. So it stays between the team. If you decided to write an email to somebody else, even in the context of that project, and you do not mention the other team members, it stays between you and the other person. So it will be in the stream and you and the other person will see it, but no one else. So as said, we do not change any permission rights or access rights. We do not make private emails available to anyone else. So we don't do that. So everything is safe. So it's private, it's private.
So, and Starmind, since Starmind also learns from different sources, we don't access any one-on-one conversations. We don't access any data that is not any way available to everyone within the organization. So in our case, we would only learn from conversations on Teams, for example, if they are in a public channel, or from Slack, or if a calendar entry is set to public, that the rest of the organization can draw the very same conclusion than our AI can.
Next question. Obviously, you are all open to working together. So is this common, or how do I get my vendors to get together? It would be great to have everything in one place.
Yeah, I'll lead off, but I think we all have a perspective on this. And, you know, when we first started, we tried doing more than we do today. We thought, you know, we'll integrate to surveys and we'll integrate to all these different data sources. And we realized that each thing was its own company. It was its own product. And if you try to build one solution that does everything, you end up being kind of the jack of all trades, master of none. And your individual abilities are not going to be as good as that of a company just built around finding experts, or a company just built around conversational knowledge. And so we adopted a best of breed approach, because the other thing is that customers have varying needs. You know, one customer has all their dashboards in Tableau. Another has everything in Power BI. So instead of building our own amazing, how are we going to do this thing, we're going to integrate with best of breed tools. And what we find with our customers is that it's important to build a cohesive ecosystem where everybody works together. And the thing that's been really powerful is the voice of the customer. Because when we started early on, even when we made we realized, you know, it took us, you know, months in to realize we needed best of breed and we needed to partner with everybody. But then initially, more than a few vendors had their own walls up to say, well, we're doing our own thing. You know, we're trying to conquer that universe ourselves. But the voice of the customer came in, and those customers have a very strong point of view to say, we're building a knowledge system. It's our knowledge system. It's not Lucy's. It's not Starmind's. It's not Wyze Work's. It's not these other vendors. It's our knowledge system. And what we want is we want these vendors to work together. We want these subscriptions to come in. We want these tools to integrate. And so we're like, that's fabulous. That's a win-win for everybody. That's the right approach. And we need to be as welcoming and open to all parties to bring it all together to the benefit of the customer. And then everybody wins.
Mark, perhaps you can tell us a little bit more from your perspective.
Well, the only thing I can add is that in the end, we are building a system for the user, for the employee, and the employee doesn't really care who the providers are. The employee wants a solution that actually works. And that's why for us, it's very clear to partner with amazing companies like Lucy to create that user experience that the employee is actually expecting. To try to do everything on your own, yes, if you're Microsoft, you might try that, but for everyone else, I don't think that's a great strategy.
To add there, I think there was a session already with you and Christy from Knowledge Hub. I think what we do when we partner, we are open-minded. We develop our own solution further and further. We learn from other people. We have a strong, let's say, network of experts who can solve problems I have maybe because they have a different point of view of that. And I think if you try to do it all yourself in a couple of years, I'm afraid you will be alone in the market because others will open up. They will develop themselves further, come up with new ideas, come up with, let's say, collaborations and their new products that come out of this. I mean, we all are here to bring the industry to the front. We all are here to bring our brains in and our expertise and make the world a better place and make the customers smarter without working harder. So there's no need to really block and say, I don't want to be part of it. I think it needs to be the opposite.
What a fantastic sentiment to end on. So we'd like to thank Scott, Mark, and Hydro for joining us today. And of course, all of you for participating in this webinar. We really hope you've enjoyed your time with us. If you're interested in what's coming up next at ESOMAR, then please go to the resources widget in the console and click on the link. We have a huge amount of content being discussed and broadcast, so don't miss out. If you'd like to join ESOMAR, then click on the link in the widget as well. Your support is, of course, invaluable to us. So thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you in a future webinar. Bye. Thank you, Scott. Thanks, Hajjana. Thanks, Mark.
Bye.